Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Workforce on Deck. We have an exciting new podcast for you today. And of course, Vince Jackson here, and I will also let my sidekick, or actually, I guess I'm the sidekick really here. Let's be real. So, Sarah, you want to introduce yourself real quickly too, and we'll get going?
I would love to, and thank you for putting that down for posterity's sake forever and ever in recording that you are my sidekick, Mr. Jackson. So, Dr. Sarah Inman here. So, Vince's esteemed co-host and proud sidekick in all things. But we are also here with another guest who those of you who listen to the podcast on a regular basis may recognize. So, our friend Meredith Johnson has joined us again. We previously talked to Meredith on a really cool episode where we dove in way more about payroll than I ever had understood or experienced, probably in my entire life and career. So we couldn't wait to have her back. So Meredith, I would love for you to do just another quick little intro for those who may not know you or didn't listen to your prior episode. Would love to have you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background. Specifically, I'd love to hear about your background in software implementation and customer support, since that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. My name is Meredith Johnson. I've been working in software implementations and support, actually, is where I got my start for about 26 years now. As I said, I did start in support for HR and payroll software packages. And then about 6 years after that, I moved into implementation. So I've been implementing for over 20 years at this point, strictly on the HR and payroll side. But of course, we have Vince here, so he can take care of any of the timekeeping stuff.
Vince and I love to talk timekeeping, so don't you worry. We'll definitely be jumping in with some workforce management stuff, no doubt. So, as we mentioned, we really wanted to talk today not just about the nitty gritty of what happens during a implementation itself, but really what happens after you go live. So, we've all been a part of a project before. I'm assuming most people who are listening today have also experienced it themselves, or they're listening in to a little bit of a sneak peek of what maybe is in their future if they're considering it. So, when a company implements a new system, everyone's focused on go live. There's frenetic energy. We have a project plan we're working towards. Everybody knows what to expect. It's that controlled chaos we've all come to expect. But then we get into post go live and hypercare is ended. The teams have left. What do you typically see, Meredith, is happening in the weeks and months after go live once the dust starts to settle a little bit?
This is going to sound very, very funny, but definitely relief as well as chaos. So relief that go live is finally over and they can actually get back to their day to day, but now they have user adoption, right? So now these companies have a brand new system in place. They have to make sure that their power users are, of course, trained and up to date on everything. But they also have to make sure that their employees can utilize the system and see their information and have access to what they need. And on top of that, we also have, anything that they did not actually test for. So now we're getting into day-to-day real life. And unfortunately, you never can test every scenario because you're always going to have a situation where this employee is different in such a way that it's never happened before.
There's always those one-offs, right? It's
Mhm.
you plan forever for everything to go exactly right. And just like you mentioned, there's going to be that scenario, that special snowflake that this is a little bit different. We couldn't plan for it. We couldn't account for it. So when you see things like that happen, again, we're assuming this is an environment where customers already gone live, project team has rolled off, and they're in the midst of their day-to-day. What are the challenges or the issues that you typically see come up then? So like you said, they've gotten user adoption. We've tested everything that we can test. The system's working. But when you have a team or an organization now who is in the midst of the day-to-day and then something arises that they didn't plan for and didn't test for, what sort of issues do you usually see with customers around that?
Typically speaking, it tends to be user adoption struggles, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, you know, you're during any implementation, there's always going to be at least one person who didn't want that particular software. Doesn't matter which software package it is, it always happens. And generally speaking, those are going to be the people who are heading the teams that are absolutely required for the go live. So now they've been stressed out by go live, everything's working, but they may or may not have completed all of their training. They may not have completed all of their testing. They may not have actually analyzed the testing scenarios and results to the point that they can move forward of, oh, okay, this is just the procedure I have to do. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest struggles. The other would be lack of support. Once we've gone live, that immediate response, you're now in a live environment. So you've been transitioned to support. Support is there to meet your SLAs and everything. However, that SLA is not what you've come to expect during the implementation process because you've had dedicated consultants on your team. And a lot of our just live, especially our enterprise level clients, need that extra white glove service.
It's
So, oh, go ahead.
interesting. The resistors at the beginning who had an issue with the implementation, isn't it funny the way that works out that 9 times out of 10, when we run into issues post live, suddenly it's, wait a second, I don't know how to do this. Hold on a second. My team doesn't know what they need to do. And in so many instances, we see user adoption challenges, completion of training challenges. So nothing to do necessarily with the organization, nothing to do with the software they've selected. It's those individual users sometimes that can have these issues and have these concerns that really stem from sometimes them just not following the process at the very beginning that was set out for them. So
Well, and those people can make or break your post go live too. So, if things aren't working, have they actually been trained? Did they take all of the training?
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, right? I mean, it could be that they did take the training. It could be that they're running into issues that they weren't, trained on or different. It could be
Mhm.
that they know how to execute and manage the system on a day-to-day basis, but not necessarily make changes, right? They discover these new things and they need to make real configuration changes. That's a little scarier than I know how to run payroll. I know how to make sure people are getting their time in. I know how to create the forecast and make sure it's right. This is like literally going in and having to tweak it because it wasn't delivering the outcome that they wanted. That's the
Mhm.
other place where I see, and that usually takes a little longer to start realizing, right? It's all of a sudden, okay, I am doing this right. How do I figure out what I need to do to change in the system to get it to where I need it to be? So I think that's
Mhm.
the next level that comes after the user adoption issues and after yeah, I did take all the training. It's, there's kind of, I would say there's a level of support you have to provide there too. I don't know if that, if you guys see that same thing too, but that's definitely what I've seen in the past.
understandable fear, right? As Meredith mentioned, there's all leading up to the go live, there is a team that is available right there at your shoulder to make any changes, to talk through any decisions, to help guide you towards what you want something to look like. Then let's say 2 months after go live, all of a sudden you're the grown-ups in the room and you're the ones having to make those decisions. You're the ones having to make those configuration changes. And that's a lot for anyone, but especially for an organization who maybe just simply are busy. It's now we're all of a sudden we've made it through our go live. Now we're in our busy time. I'm thinking about retail and customers who have gone live in October who are then heading directly into the holidays. Healthcare customers who have gone live and now we're heading into flu season or RSV season for our children's hospitals. And all of a sudden they're going, okay, hang on a second, all of this is now our responsibility. And we also have these other things that we need to worry about. And Meredith, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you so much, because I know so much of what you do is in this post live after the team has left support, and seeing from that vantage point of where there's opportunities then to come in and be just a little bit of extra help for those organizations who not everybody necessarily may need it. Some people feel like they've got it covered, but for the ones that go, oh my gosh, now what? What's available to them? What can you do? You can't just pick up the phone and call your, vendor, right? And say, never mind, we've changed our mind. Come back in. We want to extend the project for another 18 months because we need boots on the ground help. So what do they do?
Typically, they reach out to us as partners. So that's one of the advantages that that we can give them is that white glove service after go live. White glove is handled all the way through the implementation, but again, you get to go live and it's okay, now what do we do? Um, and configuration changes are outrageously scary when you're talking about the fact that this information is going from your employee to your payroll department and then to your accounting department. You have to know that it's right. And if you don't have a test system, that's one area that you could potentially work on. But making these in a test system versus changing in production so that you can test adequately, great idea, unless you're not sure exactly where to put it. And that's where our concierge services would come into play.
So I have seen something work really well with a customer we've worked with in the past where we provided post live services, but it went a little beyond that. And I want to talk about this a little bit mainly because the reader in me, the very type A documentation person in me goes to how valuable something like this can be, is having somebody essentially as a scribe to write down and document, here's a change that I made, here's the reason that we made it, here's the decisions that were made that led up to it, and then here's what somebody would need to do down the line in order to do that again in the future. Is that typical that you see in situations like this? Because again, I know that's something that we've done with a customer that I really loved seeing. Is that your experience, that you not only get this extra sort of hands-on support, but then basically they leave you a book behind, right? To say, hey, if you ever need something and I'm no longer here, here's the support that you have. Is that standard in the industry, or is that just we've got really great people who happen to do it? I'm asking the question genuinely because it's not something I see every day, but I thought was really cool.
I think that that's actually been kind of moved out of the implementation process. I remember years ago we used to do that. Now, what I can say is that, do I do it for my clients? Absolutely. I send them off into the world, whether they're an implementation or a concierge client. I send them off into the world with about 5 to 600 job aids. Of these may not all apply to your company, but if you have to do something and you're not sure how to do it, we've got this list and you can go through there to adequately see. Now, one of the other items that is also given to at least most of the clients that I've dealt with is a searchable knowledge base, and generally provided by the software vendor. And that's amazing as long as you know exactly what you're looking for. So basically, how is mine different? I send a folder out, a digital folder with job aids and how to's and all kinds of goodies for them so that they have this at their fingertips. Does it mean that they're always going to check that list versus contact me? Absolutely not. And that is absolutely fine.
I love that. So there's an option there.
Hmm.
If I need to pick up the phone and say, my hair's on fire, I need help, I know who to call. If it's okay, here's an issue that I need to fix, I've got a little bit of time. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with this from when we went through the implementation process. Let me just dive into, my knowledge base, my dictionary that I have here and figure it out. It just gives an option where you may not have had one otherwise, that seems like it would be really attractive to a customer that's saying, we think we got it, but we also know we probably need a little bit of help, at least for the foreseeable future.
And to be quite honest, most of the clients, the other issue is the fact that when their hair is on fire, they don't have time to search knowledge bases.
Right.
They need it right now. And when we're talking about most payroll systems, at least at this point, are working to get their checks out by a specific date, which means everything has to be processed by a very specific day and time during that payroll week. They don't always have time to be able to do that. And they also don't always have other people in the office that they can say, "Hey, I'm working on this and this is a huge fire for me. Can you go over there and look this up just to make sure we're doing it right?" So, having that touch point person is also very, very helpful for that. especially, again, like we said before, we're talking about people who had somebody at their shoulder for the last 4 to 6 months, and they can't always just wait.
And now it's a phone a friend. I mean, I know that's a gross
Mhm.
oversimplification of the process, right? But to know I have somebody I can call makes a
Mhm.
huge difference when, like you said, it's I don't have time, hair's on fire, something's going on, to be able to just pick up the phone or send a quick email, an SOS over Teams and say, I need help. Can you help me? I know there's someone on the other line feels like a really valuable safety blanket, if
Well,
anything.
So,
and to be honest, all of my clients also have my cell phone number. It's in my signature so that they don't have to panic. If you can't reach me on Teams, you didn't get, it's after hours, so I'm not on email. You have my cell phone number. If it's that big of an emergency, please text me and we can take care of it.
so let me ask a question on this, right? Because, you know, eh, a lot of people out there going, well, can I call my vendor for these things? We know the answer. But I would love kind of your response, Meredith, on this of what's the difference, right? What should a customer expect to get from a vendor, and why would they, what's that differentiation of why they would come to us? Because there's definitely a difference in what they would provide and what they should expect. So,
Typically, with the partners, with our concierge services, our SLAs are much shorter. So our service level agreements are much quicker. Turnaround is much faster. You also have someone not from a group of 100 that is supporting you, but probably 5 to 10 people. And all of those people have had experience up to this point with your data. So you have people who know your data, who know your company, who know you to be able to assist you in the best and fastest possible methods.
That
and would
feels
you
like
also,
an interesting distinction. So sorry, Vince. It's such an interesting distinction because, as you mentioned, it's we know with so many of these vendors, they have great global support teams. They
Mhm.
provide a huge service. If there's a small one-off issue or question or something that goes on, that absolutely is a case where they're able to jump in and they're able to provide that support. But as you mentioned, Meredith, that more long-term, additional basically extra set of hands to have
Mhm.
the opportunity to have people who, as you mentioned, a smaller team who know your system already, who are not coming into it blind, who have a faster SLA than a large global vendor potentially would offer, which also will make sense for a smaller company versus a larger company. And just to be able to have people who are familiar with who you are and what your business is and what your actual system is doing seems hugely valuable just in terms of how quick somebody would be able to get in and diagnose an issue.
Absolutely.
I think the one other thing I was hoping I want to call out too is they're not break fix though, right? I mean, as a company, anybody that you're doing managed services concierge with is not break fix from a perspective. If there's truly something wrong in the application, they're not going to be able to fix that, but they're going to help you figure that out faster so that you can go
Absolutely.
back to the vendor and you can go back and say, look, here's all the things we did. It's a core problem in your system. We need tech support, right? So I think that's the other thing is a lot of times customers struggle to figure out, is it something they're doing wrong, or is it a problem within the application? Um, I would love to, we've talked a lot about the kind of that safety net and that break fix or, not break fix, but, reacting to things that need to change fast. The other thing is that business changes, right? They evolve, they learn more as they go. Business expectations or legal things change. Um, I feel like that's probably a great area as well, where having a service like this provides that extra support. Is that something that you see a lot too? It goes beyond just the day to day, but kind of that strategic looking at where their business is going and helping them
Abs-
be proactive.
Definitely. And the other thing is that generally speaking, do we get every module that we implemented when we go live? Because that it doesn't generally happen. And it's not a lacking from the client, it's not a lacking from the vendor. It's we ran out of time and we ran out of testing ability, or we ran out of people who could actually implement this. So it's not just okay, well, we're going to troubleshoot why this is not working the right way. We're going to set up additional modules, potentially additional integrations, whatever is going to make your system work better for your company. Reorganizations happen frequently, especially these days, in any of the verticals that we're working in. It's not just, a lot of times, and Sarah will probably get a giggle out of this, but a lot of times it used to be just healthcare. Healthcare would reorg every other year, it seemed like. But that's not the case any longer. Retail's doing it, manufacturing is doing it to the nth degree. So yeah, being able to have someone that again knows your company, knows your data, and can help you with that reorganization is huge, because it's not just going to affect one system. It's you have a unified platform, it's going to affect all of them.
I love that piece of it, Vince, the ability to strategically think through and have a partner, not a I'm not saying partner in the terms of, we are a partner, but a actual partner in that you have somebody who is shoulder to shoulder with you as an organization, who is helping you map out what the future is going to look like, how you can get maximum value from your current investment by thinking a year ahead. Here's what we need to be planning for 6 months from now if you want to achieve XYZ 2 years from now. So having that person who is involved and actually, again, we talked about at the beginning, understand your business, know where you've been, know where you plan on going. It's almost, I say this as somebody who runs a strategy team, but it's kind of like having a little strategist in your back pocket, that you have somebody who's actually constantly checking up on the health of your system and your business strategies.
Someone invested, right? I mean, they're invested in your success. And, at that point, you got a partner there. And that goes a long
Realizing
way.
your ROI.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's doing this just because they want to change software. That they're doing the implementation and their post go live setup because they're looking for that return on investment. And if you have someone who, again, to Sarah's point, knows where you were, knows where you are now, and knows where you're going, in a lot of cases, that ROI becomes much more attainable.
A lot of people say just more attainable, but also attainable much faster.
Faster. Yep.
And then you shorten that return on investment. Not only do you get it, but you get it faster, and you're hitting business outcomes. I mean, there's so much into it. And let's be real, those savings are hard, and benefits are hard and soft as well, because they can help you avoid pitfalls that could cost you money. In addition to it, that's one of the things I think we haven't hit on is in having come from the scheduling side primarily and forecasting scheduling, right? There's still a lot of labor laws and rules that you have to adhere to. And good grief, if you're not doing it right, the risk you're taking on is phenomenal. And those things change daily.
Well,
So I
and
think
what
risk
about
mitigation.
taxes?
Yeah. Yeah.
And taxes too. I mean, we have one long-term concierge client at this point who went live, um, and didn't realize until month 3 post go live that a lot of their tax contribution rates weren't in the system, and opened them up to a huge amount of liability. Luckily, it was the beginning of month 3 and not the end of month 3, so we could get that all fixed for them, before they had to file their first quarterlies. But it's a huge liability.
Let's be transparent. You did not have anything to do with the implementation of that software, did you?
No, I was strictly concierge, I assure you.
Well, and it's Vince, exactly where my head was immediately going to scheduling, right? Because I don't think there's a minute of the day I'm not thinking about scheduling. I really need to get some new hobbies. But, when we think about the different changes, and I think that's what was so eye-opening to me. And this is, revealing my age here, but I come from a world where back in the day, pre-SaaS software, like so many of these vendors are doing today, where I had an administrator on site. I was the administrator in one instance on site where any of these things that happened, I was required to make the changes. I had to stay up to date on all of it. I had to interface with all of the different teams across my organization. And now, as these organizations have moved to the SaaS model, those roles go away in many places for good reason. You no longer need somebody, taking up an entire salary, benefits, things of that nature in the same way that we did in the past when everything lived on-prem. So, long-winded way of me asking this question, Meredith, but when I think about, the 10 years ago of using, software like this versus today, the not having that person who's immediately there that I can pick up the phone and go, hey, I'm splitting out a unit because it's peak season and I need to basically create an overflow. So I need a new scheduling group in the system, can be a little intimidating. So when we talk about concierge service, it's not just, hey, somebody's calling me because I've forgotten how to punch. It's a, hey, concierge care team, I need your help in building out and configuring a new scheduling group. Is that accurate when I say that that's the level of support that you can get from that kind of team?
Absolutely. You can use concierge services for pretty much anything that you need at that time. One of the common calls, and of course, me being on the HCM side, it's a little bit different than the WFM experiences that you guys have, is work locations. Hey, we're opening a new location, and we don't even have taxes in that state yet. How do we do this, and how do we make sure that everyone is going to be taxed appropriately? And of course, I always go back to taxes because that's generally one of the big gotchas out there.
I'm glad you're thinking about that because after our conversation about payroll and taxes and all that, which anybody listening, if you have not listened to that episode, I cannot recommend enough that you go back and listen to Meredith and Brenda as we talk through that. So it's helpful to know because nobody can be an expert in everything. And for organizations to have that understanding that they basically can have an expert in their pocket that they can go back and refer to. So if there are instances like this, if they're thinking, okay, we are on a journey to add a bunch of new locations, we are in the mergers and acquisitions realm, we are thinking about reorging on a regular basis, just sort of knowing and having in their head that we have this opportunity to leverage the experience and knowledge of a group who's right there that I can tap into at any time versus me feeling like now I need this whole new level of engagement and I need to bring an expert in to tell me everything I need to know about taxes. Those are components that even I'm not thinking about. And I work for an organization where we offer this and you do this every day. So, what are some other things that people would leverage this kind of service for that maybe aren't just top of mind that they're necessarily thinking of?
Additional modules. One of the modules that we get a lot of requests for, or two of the modules I should say, are compensation and performance. They're typically not they're typically not set up during a phase one, more of a phase two. But again, the implementation team has just gone through go live, and all of a sudden they're getting ready to go into their compensation review schedules, or open enrollment. Open enrollment is another big one, and life events. Life events are typically set up at go live because we've already set them up in the benefits to get them on the paycheck, but not necessarily open enrollment. Um, Integrations. Oh, we got our integrations done for go live, except now I'm just going to use Fidelity as an example. Fidelity says that we can't have 401k loans and 401k deductions or deferrals on the same file. We have to split that out. We're adding a new company. All of those are things that we can help with from the concierge care team.
So I want to ask this. With all of that being said, how does an organization know how much support they're going to need? Right? So if it's a situation where I'm an organization and I'm coming to you, Meredith, going, I know I need help. I want an extra set of hands. I want somebody there. I want them available to me. What's the best way for me to be thinking about what that level of support might look like, because the last thing I want to do as an organization that just paid $500,000 to implement a solution is then to lock myself into a 2-year long contract, right? So
Mhm.
what does that look like? How do I make sure that I'm getting the level of support that I need without overestimating or frankly underestimating?
Honestly, it's going through it. So, setting up those meetings, having that support with you, and then realizing, okay, you know what? I really need to speak to my team, my concierge team, once a week. So, I want to set that up. And therefore, if I have a problem, I know I can bring it to that meeting. Does that mean I have to wait to that meeting? Absolutely not. You can send an email at any time and still get your same SLA. And that's one of the offerings that we have with Flex. But we also have a situation where we have office hours. Do you want one person or even two of your consultants? Because maybe one's on the HCM side, like me, and one's on the timekeeping side. Do you want a meeting that you can create exactly what's going to be discussed in that once a week, once a month, once a quarter, however you would like to set that up. And then it's got to be evaluated on a regular basis. So, okay, we've set up our weekly office hours. We get to talk to our team once a week. Then we have additional flex hours that we can use for building, but we realize that all of a sudden we're using a lot more flex hours, or a lot more, we need more meetings than this. Great, let's reevaluate. If you need more, we can have two or three even. We could do 5 days a week of office hours. We can also do, you may only need that for a month. That's great. We'll do 5 to make sure that you are comfortable with your system for the first month, 2 months, 3 months, first quarter, and then move to well, we probably only need it twice a week now. We're
So
getting much more familiar with the system.
so I get to decide then is what you're saying.
Absolutely, the client always gets to decide.
Yeah. And that's great, right? I mean, it gives them the flexibility that they want and need. Don't overpay, don't underpay, get what you need. I think the thing too, probably that I've seen be very successful is a bit of an assessment as before you even kick off, right? That to do an assessment of what all modules do they have, where do they have strengths and weaknesses, do they have turnover, right? I mean, that's another great place we didn't even talk about, right? If you lose a
Oh,
resource on
the
your
assessments
team,
are critical. Yeah.
yeah. If you lose someone on your team, you need somebody to step in temporarily. It's a perfect solution for this. You up your hours temporarily. Why aren't you going and hiring someone? But I think doing the assessment out of the gate and understanding the breadth of support you need and the depth of support you need, right? Because you may have someone that's an expert on onboarding, but you're lacking on someone who knows payroll and taxes, right? Or you may not know someone who knows forecasting and optimization, but you got timekeeping covered, whatever that case may be. So I think understanding what your needs are and even looking into the future is key for that. But knowing you have the flexibility to adjust as your business changes, I think is an element that you have to have in place. Um, the other thing I think too is, look, there's so much that can be supported, from reporting to analytics to you name it, right? If you think about what all goes around HCM and WFM, it's a lot. And I think you got to figure out, what that looks like.
Well, and the other thing is that through that assessment, you can also look for spaces where the automation is not there. Did they implement workflows at go live? Did they implement, checks and balances at go live? Or was it so hectic that nobody thought of it because we were too busy trying to troubleshoot to get that first payroll out?
I love that. All right, I'm wrapping my head more around this again from a perspective of I want to be providing the best information possible to my customers.
Mhm.
And with that in mind, what do I need to be thinking about so I can share with customers and that people who are listening to the podcast can be thinking about? What are some early warning signs that there is probably going to be a need for something like this post live? So we know this will not necessarily be for everybody. I mean, I think it's a great service for everybody to have, but we also know some organizations just have the staff where they say, we're good, we got it, it's under control. But for those who aren't sure, who think I might need some extra support, what are some things that typically should be sort of, kind of that tickler in the back of their mind that maybe I need to talk to somebody and kind of get that phone a friend, get those extra hands? I mean, is it just as simple as if you're worried about resourcing, if you're worried about a lot of changes, like what should they be looking for?
It's not necessarily about resourcing or a lot of changes. I mean, obviously, those are going to be areas that the client could benefit from additional hands in any situation. But a lot of it is workarounds, honestly. One of the biggest signs that user adoption has not gone completely the way that you expected at go live are the number of workarounds you're using. Do you have 9,000 spreadsheets that you have to keep your data on to make sure that the system is calculating the way that you expect to? Do you have a high confidence from not only your employees but your staff as far as what the system is producing? A lot of things, and this goes back to Vince's thoughts on the assessments. That's 90% of what we find in assessments is someone has a huge number of spreadsheets where they're tracking the data outside of their system. And obviously that spreadsheet and your system, they're not talking to each other. And we need to take the step to get from spreadsheet to actually having the system do what it's supposed to do.
I love it. So I'm going to ask this question, and you don't have to name any names because I don't want to name any customers. I don't want to call anybody out.
No, of
But
course not.
you have an example, and we can take this both ways. An example of either a customer that things went really, really sideways and being able to sort of jump in and provide that white glove concierge care support on the other end, help turn things around, or that maybe was just a success story that things were going fine, but I say we like I had anything to do with it. You, Meredith, and your team were able to jump in and really just be the cherry on top. So don't want to just focus on the negative. If you've got a positive, I'll take that too. But I'd love to hear just a real example of where you've been able to help turn things around because of this level of service.
The biggest negative I would say I've already mentioned today, and that was the client who wound up not having all of their contribution rates for their taxes. That was huge. We got it fixed in about 3 weeks, and we did that strategically to make sure that everything was caught up for their first quarter filing. And it was a lot of work. It was an enterprise level client. I believe about 4,000 employees, and they didn't know what they didn't know. As far as they were concerned, the system was calculating, paychecks were being paid, everything was fine. As far as a success story, we have one client that is strictly seasonal. They do entertainment. I'll just put it that way, but it's definitely a seasonal thing. They had to hire, I think it was less than 6 months after go live, they had to hire over 6,000 employees for the summer. Could they have gotten through it? Absolutely. Was it a whole lot quicker, and did their team hugely benefit from assistance? Absolutely. And they were so appreciative of that assistance because they could actually get those employees all in, make sure their work locations were right, their taxes were right, their benefits or lack of benefits because they were seasonal employees. Some of them were unions. I mean, all of that. And it was correct and in the system. In that case, I would say we were probably the cherry on top.
That's quite a cherry, adding 6,000 people to a system. And it's the reason, honestly, I asked the question, not even knowing of that example. First off, wow, kudos to you and your team for being able to do that. But again, just thinking through if I'm putting myself back in the seat of being a former customer and where this would have been beneficial and the things that I needed to be thinking about. Those are different pieces that may not necessarily come up during the implementation, but they should. We should be looking for opportunities to talk through that with our customers to say, hey, what does 6 months from now look like for you? What does a year from now look like for you? And I love what you mentioned before about the ability to flex the needs a bit. So it may not be a situation where you need somebody on call for you 24/7 for the next year, but to be planning ahead that I have a mass influx of staff that I need to add, or we know we're going to go through a reorg, and just being able to have that available as an option versus that moment of panic and wondering, what are we going to do? How are we going to support the team? How are we going to get this done? We all have day jobs to do. I think is really powerful.
Well, the panic, at least my experience, is the panic generally sets in when the user, not necessarily the client as the company, but the user feels like they're on an island. And concierge service gives them a group of people on that island with them. So it's not going to be one person against the world, it's a team. And there's always strength in numbers.
I love that. I absolutely love it. So since we're talking about just the post live journey in general, how can organizations, from your vantage point as somebody who's been doing this and has worked with a ton of customers, not just during their implementation, but obviously post live, what are the sort of things that they should be proactive in planning for well before they even get to the point where they're getting ready to think about go live? How can organizations be wrapping their heads around and thinking about the post go live success? And what are the conversations they should be having with each other and their project teams now before they're even there?
So, what you had mentioned earlier about the admin, Sarah, I think that that's still a very key component to a successful go live, is at least having, whether you call them an admin or an escalation point, but a member of the team who will funnel the information from the vendor, from the partner, or implementation partner, however your implementation is going to be done, and then making sure that it's filtered back out to the client's team. One of the areas that we see a lot is, employee A doesn't know that employee B just asked this question last week. And when you have those funnels in place, you can use the concierge or support more effectively.
I love it. These are the things we need to be talking about. These are the things we need to be thinking about. And it's one of the reasons we wanted to pull you in and have this conversation, because we knew no one better than you to just help get the wheels spinning and get customers thinking about it. I know I am probably going to ask you back for a round two because I have even more questions and scenarios that I'd love to talk through. But I also want to be mindful of the fact that you have customers out there to take care of. So I'm certainly not going to take up your entire day. So any closing thoughts from your standpoint, Vince?
Yeah, I would love to have her back because I think, we didn't get into this, but I see the world of managed services, concierge services evolving and changing as we move forward too. I'm pretty excited about what, the future looks like, and I would love to give Meredith's input on that as well, and see where she sees it going in the next, 1, 2, 3 years, because I think it's going to evolve. I think, as customers look at this as an opportunity to be, have greater support with less resources on site on their own too. It's great. But Meredith, thank you for joining with us. I do appreciate it greatly. It was very insightful, and look forward to our continued conversations as we move forward.
Well, thank you guys for having me back. I truly enjoyed it.
Well, we can't wait for the next go round. So as always, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if there's other stuff that you want to hear Meredith talk about, please feel free to let us know. And otherwise, we will catch you on our next episode of the Workforce on Deck podcast.